Think about the lyrics, "In the meadow, we can build a snowman and pretend that he is Parson Brown." It's a song we hear on loop, again and again. And it naturally leads to the question, who's Parson Brown? If you look at the internet, you get a lot of nothing answers. That, oh, Parson is a minister in the Church of England, and Brown is a nothing name that was just used to rhyme with town. No further meaning behind it. We can do better than that. The first problem is the Parson explanation. Most places say that that's a figure in the Church of England, and yes, that is true, but many of the stronger claimants to being the historical Parson Brown are actually Methodist, so it's not just a Church of England position. And indeed, contrary to claims that, oh, there's no obvious historical Parson Brown, a big part of the problem with researching this is there are a lot. For instance, there's a popular early 20th century orange called the Parson Brown. It fell out of favor as the 20th century continued, but it might be due for a resurgence thanks to its resistance to the citrus greening, which is plaguing Floridian orange groves. It's an interesting story, but it's named after Parson N.L. Brown. Might he be the Parson Brown of song? Maybe the oranges were popular during the time the song was being written, but you'd like some evidence of a link that doesn't seem to exist. Okay, how about Parson Fountain Brown? He was a minister who was imprisoned for violating the Emancipation Proclamation. Interesting story. Obscure story. So obscure there's no reason to suspect any connection. And then you have other Parson Browns, including some who seem to have no ecclesiastical connection whatsoever, which I think is the clue as to what's actually going on. So the song was written in 1934, and a few years before that, you had the Oscar-winning film The Broadway Melody, which features the song Truthful Parson Brown.
Truthful Parson Brown, living in a southern town, for doing good and talking good, he was known around.
There's nothing in that song that's overly helpful in identifying our mysterious parson, though it's interesting that they also rhyme town with brown, but it mostly shows there are other Parson Browns mulling about pop culture at the time the song is being written. More interesting is 1920s photoplays, How to Write Them, How to Sell Them. It features the synopsis of a 1920s single-reel comedy where, long story short, you have a Frenchman and a German who are both immigrants to America, and they are best friends, and their children are in love. Then World War I breaks out, and the friends turn on each other and bar their children from seeing each other. Except then one of the children finds a wedding dress in the attic and, according to the text, calls to a boy playing in a yard behind the house and sends a note to Cherie telling her to meet him at a corner nearby so that they may visit Parson Brown. More hijinks occur, but the point is, here's Parson Brown marrying two youngsters. No rhyming with town needed. Then in 1938, so after Winter Wonderland, so not amazing evidence, you have somebody write into a newspaper to ask, "We long to go to Parson Brown, but cannot because we are not well enough established." And the columnist responds, "What's to become of marriage in these days of unrest and uncertainty if young folks wait until they have everything just as they want it before Parson Brown has his say?" Again, that's an explicit reference to Parson Brown as a marrying figure, independent of snowmen or anything like that. Then in 1932, you have a cartoon which, okay, it's totally early 20th century racist, but it's accompanied by a supposedly comedic article about a woman and a man going to a minister to get married, except the man is phenomenally drunk. The details of the story don't matter, but the accompanying cartoon features the woman pushing the man who's in a wheelbarrow to a building that has at the front Parson Brown. Then there's some wedding spoof stage comedies from the 1910s that also feature a Parson Brown character. And there are more interesting data points. Like Steve Allen of Tonight Show fame had a thing with Cosmopolitan where he said, "Who will perform the ceremony? Parson Brown. But if you were Jewish or Catholic, it makes no difference. All wedding services are performed by Parson Brown." Interesting, but also from the 1950s, so not necessarily independent of Winter Wonderland. And with that, I think it's a good place to stop. I have now read hundreds of pages of early 20th century references to Parson Brown, and I think the explanation that most fits with the available evidence is that Parson Brown is a sort of mimetic early 20th century parson who's associated with slightly dodgy marrying practices. He might also have an itinerant element to him, in which case the Brown and Town rhyme is probably just a really nice free rhyme, but it doesn't seem necessary. Have we answered the question we set out to answer? Not really, but hopefully we can take Parson Brown out of the expectation of being a specific to Christmas parson and into being a more generally pop culture parson. Now, a note to future researchers. There's probably a minstrel show element at some level. I say this because there is a minstrel show performer in the early 20th century whose name is Parson Brown, and Parson Brown does show up in some definitely indisputably minstrelly contexts. But they can't tell you whether Parson Brown is a minstrel show creation that went into pop culture, a pop culture thing that went into minstrel shows, or both are taking from some mysterious third source. The reference in photo plays to Parson Brown, though, kind of makes me doubt that he has his origin in minstrel shows, just because there's no indication in that play he's supposed to be black. As for me, I think it's just an early 20th century meme. Then this meme gets fossilized into a song, which completely randomly, decades later, we're still singing. Nobody explains the reference because it's a reference you're just supposed to know. But then now, all these years later, we've lost the reference. And so you get article after article, video after video that do not even try to explain who is Parson Brown.